Patton and his family. It was 10 children. And then next to Norman Patton is the father of Eddie Lee, who was the oldest. She's the youngest actually living daughter of James Youngblood. And what we didn't know for so long, many of us did not know about Grandma Morning Elizabeth Youngblood. We didn't know about her brother. But what we came to know, that she did know her brother and who he was. And Aunt O'Reen, who was in this room, knew his sons and lived on the next street from them, knew of them. But we had no idea and didn't know how to really connect the dots. And I'm bland to remember when her uncle, who was sitting back in the very back, came to visit with his sister, James Youngblood. But we never heard a lot of talk about him. And tonight you're going to hear a story about his life. And Keith Belanto is going to present that to us. And I'm changing changing around a little bit to save time because we started a little late. And many of you have heard my family history of what the stories my grandma Ruby had told me. And the stories that she told me when she was a little girl was about her grandma Eliza, who was born a slave. Okay, thank you. We're going to go through, first of all, I'll start through by telling you who these people are. We'll go back. These are the children of Silas and Kitty Horton Patton. We have all the pictures of all of their children except Peyton, who was the oldest son, Peyton Patton, and there was a Lewis Patton, and after Lewis Patton, there was Edmund Patton, and Edmund Patton is right there where you see to the left, and to the right is a picture that we got from our cousin Paula, who her brother, her grandfather Mason had all these old pictures of Grandpa Norman, who all the Norman Patton's grandchildren stand up so the room can see who you are. If you're Norman Patton's grandchildren, stand up so everybody can see who you are. Norman Patton's, all his grandchildren and great-grandchildren stand up. Vernon, everybody, all you guys have grandchildren. Y'all are Norman Patton. These are Norman Patton. Norman and Morning Elizabeth Patton's children. That's who you see standing, and descendants. Everybody standing. They are descendants of Norman and Morning Elizabeth Patton. In this picture, the seat is that's my grandmother in his lap, Ruby Washington, Ruby D. Patton, and Uncle Luby. Now, these are pictures that we got via Paula Gibson, who is a granddaughter of Mason Patton. That to the right is Mason Patton, her grandfather, and to the left is another sister, Elizabeth Patton. These were some more of the children of Silas and Kitty Patton. That's the youngest son. Now I want all the children of Silas Jr. to stand up in this room. Yep. Now these are all Silas Jr.'s children. Okay. So the story that happened when we heard about Silas and Kitty Patton, there's so much more to it. You're not going to get in depth into all of that history on Silas, but Norman Patton, Silas's brother, married Morning Elizabeth Youngblood. Morning Elizabeth Youngblood was the daughter of, we're going to go through all these, I'll come back to this, was the daughter of James and Eliza Irby. And I'm just changing it up a little bit, you guys, because there's a lot of time. This is James and Eliza Irby. James Youngblood was the son of Thomas Youngblood. He was a slave owner up in San Jacinto County. He came into San Jacinto County from Dallas, Dallas County, Alabama, where he owned a lot of land. And I have all the paperwork on that. I have the probate of his will that his wife went to have his will probated because he died in 1854. Well, that's his son to the left. And the lady to the right is Eliza Irby. She was born a slave in 1843. And when she was born, I never knew what her mother's name was because my grandmother never really just mentioned the name, but I knew that her mother's name was Morning Elizabeth. Well, you're going to find out tonight why, and we may not go into real details about why that was, but her mother's name was Morning as well. So that's how our grandmother was named Morning Elizabeth. But she was the slave of his half-sister. So this is how we're all connected. Now, all the Youngbloods in this room are descendants of this man right here, James Youngblood. And his name was James T. Youngblood. So they had, before he married Eliza, February 2nd, 1866, they had a daughter named Mary. She was born in 1860, before slavery had ended in Texas. Now, after slavery ended, he married her. And she had 2 daughters prior to that. And some of you, when we went to the cemetery, we saw her daughter's grave, Cynthia Payne, that was one of her daughters, and Adeline was another daughter. They were both born in slavery, but after slavery ended, they married, and they had 2 children. And the 2 children they had was, the first was Mourning Elizabeth, the one that you just saw in the picture with my grandfather Norman, who got married in 1889. Well, when they married, Elizabeth was born, and after Elizabeth was the new young bloods that you see in this room today. Their grandfather, well, Eddie Lee's father was born. James Ennis Youngblood was his name, the name they'd given him. I have the Bible where it's recorded that way, that we assume that it was his sister that recorded it because she's the one that gave him the Bible, gave her the Bible as a wedding gift, because the stories that was told about his father, James Watson, who was actually his sister-in-law, that was the owner of Eliza, was very nice to her, and they treated her well. However, when after slavery ended, you're going to hear another twist in the story, because not that they were mean, it was nothing to do with meanness, but James Ennis was taken away as a little boy and went to stay in Mejia, Texas, with a family called the Yarboroughs, and you're going to hear all about that. So this is what you're going to get tonight, because most of you guys who have been coming, you've been hearing all the family history from year to year about Silas and Kitty. And there's more about Silas. You'll get that on the next year, because we had cousin Ronnie couldn't make it tonight, but now her cousin, another cousin we have, Bo, who is a descendant of Mason, has a lot of more history that you just won't believe. And I'm sorry that you couldn't make it tonight, but we're going to have Keith Youngblood and Paula, and Keith Belanto, I'm sorry. It's just been a long night, you guys. Bear with me. But we're going to have Keith Belanto, who's going to elaborate on Squire Youngblood. That's what we knew him as Squire, but they didn't call him Squire Youngblood at the time. And we're going to have Paula come up and talk to us about our cousin Thelma Patton. So it's going to be an interesting story for you all both to hear. But I'm going to let Paula start and give us a little history on her grandfather, Mason. Thank you guys for your patience too.